I'm sure by now we've all seen a great number of very detailed reviews of the RetroTINK 5X Pro, with demonstrations of Mario, Sonic, Spyro, and Halo, among other standout titles of video games history. I'm sure these videos are all well researched and masterfully presented, but I wanted to weigh in and take a moment to offer a different perspective on a much beleaguered genre of gaming that few dare to showcase. I've been following Mike Chi on Twitter for a couple years now because recently I've been really getting absorbed with what the guys at HD Retrovision are doing, and Bob at Retro RGB. I've been wanting a way to directly capture my original hardware with no fuss, and have looked at solutions like the OSSC or the Tink 2X Pro, but then I started hearing murmurs of a 5X Pro coming. On Saturday, May 1st, 2021, the RetroTINK 5X Pro went on sale to the general public. It sold out within 10 minutes. I was lucky enough to secure an order, but the question remains, will my investment be worth it? How will my favorite genre of gaming stack up against upscaling to 1080p? We can answer these questions together in this video. And one thing worth mentioning is all the footage you'll be seeing in this video was captured on original hardware going through HD Retrovision component cables to an Elgato 4K 60 Pro PCI Express capture card. 1992 saw the North American release of the Sega CD platform, and along with that, mainstream consumers were introduced to the new pioneering genre known as FMV games, or full motion video games, which replaced pixel sprites with live actors and scenes shot to film or tape. I wanted to look at a few different flavors and see how they fare through the Tink 5X. First, I want to look at the Sega Studios published true video releases, because they were mostly full screen FMV, and see how they come out. We can look at Tomcat Alley here, and honestly, the video looks surprisingly sharp and clear. Playing this with HD Retrovision component cables straight on my TV, the image definitely shows it's being stretched to its limits by the display. But on the RetroTINK, it still looks clear and crisp. Very easy to watch.
Closing at Mach 0.8.
Same can be said about Wirehead, although the compression seems to be heavier on this title, but still the RetroTINK presentation is exactly what a CRT monitor would show as well for this release. Up next, I wanted to look at the animated titles by Renovation. This is Timegal. With the animated FMV titles, colors are usually sharper and more vibrant, and this is no exception. Pinks are pink, yellows are yellow, lines are crisp and sharp, and although there is macro blocking and dithering, the pixels still seem sharp and contained. Looks like another win. And lastly, I wanted to look at Digital Pictures games since they had their own proprietary compression algorithm. First, let's look at Ground Zero Texas. The first negative I can point out is I was hoping that text would be cleaner, but there's just not much to save with such small print. For those unaware, the native video signal on these discs were at about 144p. It's dang impossible to make text that small look any cleaner, so I'm not sure if I can fault the Tink for not working miracles on this. The thing about Digital Pictures games is they were usually more dithered than the Sega Studios games, and this shows that off quite easily. But be that as it may, the spirit of the original image is still nicely retained. Playing this directly off a 1080p display, it very clearly shows the edge of the capability of this format. But the Tink takes the original image and puts it in a very comfortable to view 1080p presentation, that like everything else, just feels natural and organic. And while we're at it, let's take a look at North American launch title, Night Trap. Another 144p windowed release that's dithered beyond recognition, but again, the original detail is all present and accounted for. Nothing is being lost or distorted, so what you see is exactly how this would be experienced on a CRT display as well.
I was young once too, you know. You are a very special boy. We both know that. But you must start doing your job.
After this, I want to take a look at 32X. Let's compare Night Trap right out the gate. The biggest drawback to Sega's 32-bit FMV is the fact that the dithering is even more pronounced. Seems it's smoother and more colorful overall, but the edges seem more blocky. It's almost like an artifact about interlacing. I was curious if the Tink would be able to do anything with the jagged edges, interpreting it as interlacing, but it seems it just presented the image exactly as is. The 32X version had a much darker color timing, and I was surprised to see that the RetroTINK was able to transfer such detail in the background shadows still.
And Kelly. Nice to meet you, Mr. Martin.
Please, call me Victor.
So charming.
After this, we have Slam City with Scottie Pippin. I wanted to look at this to see how darker skin tones would be observed. And for the most part, the contrast is nice and evenly presented. I really like this title for the colors though, and wanted to see how it came through, and the colors are still as vibrant as ever.
Come on, Ace, you gotta win. I'm not going home with a loser.
And color saturation only goes up from here, because now we are looking at Supreme Warrior, quite possibly the most vibrant FMV game released by Digital Pictures. Like most of these titles, the thing that suffers the most is the text, and no amount of FPGA upscaling appears to be able to fix that issue. But the colors are still popping out like a comic book. The compression seems to be the most egregious on this release, and so far, this is probably the least impressive looking game of the whole video, graphics wise. The Tink did what it could do, but with this aggressive compression, there is not much that can be done to save this macro blocking when pushed beyond 240p. Continuing the evolution, we make our way to the Sega Saturn, Sega's official foray into the 5th generation of gaming. Released in Japan in November of 1994, the North America in May of 1995, this was Sega's true 32-bit console. So let's see if FMV improves any with the additional horsepower. In Corpse Killer, we can see that the video is at least cleaner and smoother, colors are evenly distributed, the large macro blocking has subsided, and it's almost presented in a nice film grain at this point. It's still dithered, but just more subtle now. The shooting scenes are still just as I remember them, kind of an interesting design choice to put green screen FMV sprites on a scrolling FMV background. Next, I want to see how animated FMV appears on Saturn. Take a look at Thunderstorm, also known as Cobra Command. The first thing I notice is at 1080p, the edges and line work are still very crisp and clean. The solid color palettes are still somewhat blocky, but not overly aggressive. It feels almost like just a bad VHS master was used more than anything. Now I wanted to see how Double Switch would do, with Corey Haim in all of his 1080p splendor. The video window was dramatically opened up for the Saturn port, and as such you can see much more detail. Still as dithered as the other Sega 32-bit games, but at least this was moved to a 2-disc format to allow for less compression. Now we move on to Sony's first entry into the video game console space, and we notice a vast improvement to the quality and clarity of FMV more than we have seen thus far. Notice with these cinematics in Command & Conquer, virtually zero dithering or macro blocking. It's just a clean and clear image of the general. Of course, the game itself is not FMV, so there's not much to say about the gameplay.
Affirmative.
But if we move on over to Wing Commander 3, again, the video is super clear, and we can see very fine detail in hair and set pieces. The Tink 5X just takes the image and presents it with no distortion or additional artifacts. A clean and clear presentation.
You're looking fine and fit. Does this war agree with you?
Yeah, like a pair of busted wing flaps. But it's great to see you, buddy. But hey, I got good news for you. I put you back on the fly roster.
But I requested...
Never mind that. I want you with me on my first mission.
Unfortunately, not all FMV is made the same. For Brain Dead 13, the animated style on PlayStation features tons of ghosting and other artifacts. I went to see if that was the same on a CRT, and apparently that's just a presentation. So the Tink carries all those issues over with zero discrimination. What's more off-putting is I have this also on Saturn, and it looks even worse on Saturn. ReadySoft just could not get the compression rate right for this title. What a shame. Moving along, we now enter the 6th generation of consoles, when every mainstay system was using DVD disc as the format. And as such, the video in these FMV games is a huge step in quality. Unfortunately, there is only one FMV game for the 6th generation. So for demonstrating that, we have none other than the highly controversial The Guy game on the original Xbox. And as a disclaimer, no minors have been shown during the capture of this footage. I'm thinking the source material here has to be mini DV. I set the deinterlacing to linear on this one, and it seemed to touch cleaner. Since it's newly shot and mastered DVD video, there's zero blocking and zero dithering. It's just clean, standard definition video, compressed to fit on a disc. The deinterlacing came in nicely because other than the softness inherent to standard definition footage, I can't notice any obstructive toothing or combing along any edges. This is a true test for Mike's deinterlacing, and for my money, it just comes out aces. Well done.
The mole of a substance. The number of particles. It's named after a man.
Newton.
The correct answer is Avogadro's number, and thank you, Mr. Helper. All right, ladies, on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
And the last platform we will look at in reference to pre-HDMI FMV is the Wii. Released in North America November 19, 2006, the Wii has a few FMV games to dive into. What we will look at here specifically is a Mad Dog Trilogy set. The video, although being the best it's ever looked, still looks somewhat aged, and I assume this release was made from a Betacam tape master instead of going back to the original negatives and doing a new transfer. Colors were still clean and video was still clear, but there were more interlacing artifacts in this. I tried motion adaptive, wobble, bob, linear, but I settled on motion adaptive for this as it looked the best. But I think the problem was from the tape master. It was just improperly digitized, and the interlacing is just more pronounced because of that.
You gotta learn the difference between the good guys and the bad guys. This was a good guy. Emphasis on the was.
Next we go to Mad Dog 2. It's still the same desert color palette, but the video quality seems cleaner and clearer by just a touch. The action is faster paced in this one, with many more guys and quicker guys to dispatch. The tink addresses the action with ease, and allows the game to just speak for itself.
Low life. I got a short fuse too, stranger.
Got a light?
Lastly is Bounty Hunter. The video looks sharper and cleaner than the others, and presented nicely in this 1080p 60 raster. It's hard to ignore that the camera work and editing are much better in this outing as well. And the sky is nice and blue, the grass and foliage is sharp and well rendered, the night sky is dark, the contrast is evenly displayed, the lantern lighting in this night scene shows minimal interlacing, so it's nice to see how good the picture can look upscaled when the source material already looks good. So with all that discussed, I'd say for these examples, the RetroTINK was definitely worth it to be able to have 1080p scaling on original hardware with zero interference or added artifacts. The presentation is exactly what you have already come to expect from playing on a CRT. And the fact that you can even upscale this to 1440p allows you to future-proof your setup for a 4K setup if you've not yet moved to 4K just yet.
Do it. Kerosene heater. You want me to get rid of this now? It's out of here.
And for those yearning for the days of yore, you can turn on scan lines. So drag out your Sega CD, grab a Pepsi, toss on some Fahrenheit, and enjoy FMV like it's 1993 all over again.
We gotta shut this off. The
shuttle valve must be around here someplace.